Why isn't letting your child become morbidly obese considered a form of child neglect?
One time I worked in a coffee shop and I had already put my 2 weeks notice in. One of our regulars, a heavy woman, came in with her heavy-set kids like she always did and ordered them their daily milkshakes and then yelled at them about their weight right in front of me. I ended up popping off on her because I had already put in my 2 weeks notice prior and she was being rude to our staff on top of that. I apologized to my boss after and explained what happened and my boss took my side LOL. That was just crazy abusive in my opinion.
The gap between optimal parenting and child neglect is extremely wide.
Food banks and places the less fortunate get free food and supplies. Is always donuts, frozen pizzas, cakes. The food they shove out to the poor is very fatty foods. And non-perishable, which is mostly always some high salt or fat content foods, at least for the food banks around here.
I think it is, isn't it? The problem lies in proving its willful neglect, I suppose. It's very easy to look at a skin and bone child and say yes, you're neglected, whereas with obesity there can be lots of different reasons for the weight problem which make it difficult to say for certain that it's neglect. My mom works in a school where there's a family of 4 very overweight boys. Their mother sends them with packed lunches that have 2 sandwiches, 3 full-size chocolate bars, a packet of crisps and a chocolate dessert yogurt, every day. If the children return home with anything left in their lunchboxes, their mom turns up at school the next day to make a complaint. She claims her children won't eat anything else, and if they don't eat all of it, the school is the one neglecting them. The mother gets away with it because the wider family they come from have lots of other issues and it's treated as a social care issue rather a specific neglect issue.
Because it's complicated. It's a dangerous place to go in terms of child rearing. What you're essentially saying is the state has the right to interject into a family because of choices they're making. Obesity is not as simple as too much food. Like, I know Reddit hates fat people. But there's a lot of deep socio-economic reasons why obesity exists. Also, there's how the market creates food and the types of foods it pushes. Personally, I do not like the idea of the government getting the right to split families up because a child is obese.
Also, an obese child in a loving home is better for them than a healthy child being shuffled around in an underfunded foster system, where a lot of actual abuse exists, as well.
I'm not quite sure I feel comfortable removing a child from an otherwise healthy and happy home. Simply because they're overweight, that's what that would entail. The foster system is already full of unwanted kids. Why overload it with more for what really isn't an issue? There was a viral case of a mother with her child asking her for more food. The one recorded inside a car. And I remember many thought he was obese and how she shouldn't be giving him food. Me included. Until I learned about him passing away later on due to a medical condition he had. And that the medication he used to take to treat his illness is what made him gain a lot of weight. This was an eye-opener for me. Yes, many children and even adults are forced to eat, but I won't judge anyone unless there is clear proof of abuse. Because taking a fat kid away from their parents is a way bigger injury than giving them a lifetime of weight problems. To both the parents and the child. There's also the problem of, how fat is too fat? Quote. And, how do you enforce this? And, what if the kid is just smuggling food? Quote. I'm all for proclaiming the negative health consequences of obesity. But the point at which you're using the coercive power of the state to fix the problem, you're now worse than the problem itself. Ultimately, telling people how they treat their own body is a slippery slope that I just assume we not indulge in. If a subset of our population wants to hork down Twinkies until they're 500 pounds, let them. Self-cleaning oven. Really? Because there are a lot of factors behind obesity. And it's not like there's a clear cutoff. Lots of families don't have much extra to spend on healthier food. Many kids get their meals at school. And how they eat at school is not perfectly within the parents' control. The child may also have an undiagnosed eating disorder or other medical reason why they're morbidly obese.
If letting a child do something that is unhealthy in the long run qualifies as child neglect/abuse, then roughly 90% of parents should have their kids taken away.
At a certain age, it's impossible to keep them from eating what they want, and you have to hope that whatever you taught them sticks. My aunt has a 12-year-old daughter who is obese. She hides foods, sweets from her, but she gets it outside of the house, at school or from friends. She throws crazy temper tantrums, etc., threatens to call CPS on them, and has even done so once. There's a reason those kids eat that much, and only restricting them often doesn't help. Some kids don't want help, and then there's nothing you can do really. Well, what do you want to do? Send them to foster care, where instead of being fat, they'll probably be sexually assaulted or actually abused in some way? But what if it's not due to neglect? Literally, a parent on TikTok who has a child that is obese. Nothing she caused. She breastfed. That was it. You can't look at child who is overweight and immediately think abuse, neglect. Because weight is typically a public health issue that has more to do with the safety and walkability of your town, time spent in the car, and availability of fresh produce. Weight can also be tied to exposure to microplastics, hours spent at work in physically demanding jobs or jobs that mess with sleep schedules, and other environmental factors. Is it common to walk or bike to work where you live? Is it safe? Is it safe for women, girls, and LGBTQ people to walk at night? Is it safe for children to ride bikes in your town? There is a reason that huge percentages of people are overweight in many countries. And it's not individual wrongdoing. The problem is that obesity isn't as simple as put down the fork. Often, there are physical and psychological issues at play that make losing large amounts of weight or keeping weight off very difficult or impossible. Add to that the fact that it's cheaper to eat fatty foods, and those experiencing poverty don't have a lot to throw at groceries. I think there was a recent case in the UK in which parents were charged after their obese daughter died. There's probably more to it than that, but the verdict was that her death could have been prevented if her parents hadn't allowed her to get so big. Interesting, 'cause I've just read up on a girl called Jessica who was once the heaviest little girl in the world, weighing 420 kgs at only 8 years old. Actually, CPS intervened.
I'd kif it is or isn't, but it certainly should be.
It is.
To answer this, let's define what counts as neglect towards a child. What are some examples, and can't we derive a definition from them?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.